Hello and welcome to your Fantasy Premier League one-stop shop. I'm your host Stephen Gallagher and today we're looking at all things Game Week 3. Let's get straight into it. Starting with Palmer and Saka. Palmer got injured in the warm-up to the West Ham game and Saka went off in the 50th minute against Leeds. So while we wait for an update on their availability, I think it's worth looking at a few replacements, and here are my top contenders. Semenyo, he's had a strong start to the season with 2 goals, 1 assist. He also hit the post against Wolves, so could have hauled massively there. And he takes a lot of shots, so he's the main man for Bournemouth. They play Spurs, Brighton, Newcastle and Leeds in the next 4, so he's definitely a top contender for a Palmer or Saka replacement. Another great option is Ismail Assar, who scored against Forest in Game Week 2. He's quite similar to Semenyo in that he takes a lot of shots, and his next 3 fixtures are Villa, Sunderland and West Ham. Obviously with Eze gone, we can't expect Palace to be as strong going forward, but with those fixtures and his data, I think he's a good pick. Kudus is another one to consider. He started the season strong with 2 assists in the first game. He was a bit quiet against City, but he's clearly very direct and wants to drive forward, create chances. And with these fixtures, you'd expect Spurs to score a good few goals. They've got Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Wolves, Leeds, Villa and Everton in the next 7. So you could literally play him in every single one of these games. The fixtures are great, so he's a serious contender for a Palmer or Saka replacement. I like Elanga as a differential shout here because not a lot of people are talking about him, and for good reason to be fair. Newcastle are absolutely riddled with injuries. Tonali, Joelinton, Schär could all miss out. Gordon is suspended. But at the same time, Newcastle play Leeds and Wolves in the next 2, and Elanga seems to have nailed down that right wing spot. I do think if everyone in the side was fit and Newcastle had a striker, then Elanga would be way higher up on this list, but because of those points, it makes this move a bit riskier than the others, but it could pay off massively. On to defences to target. Here we can see the teams with the best fixtures from a defensive perspective over the next 5 game weeks. Villa are top of the table with Palace, Everton, Sunderland, Fulham and Burnley in the next 5. They've not been scoring a lot, but their defence has been decent. And if you have a defensive transfer to make, you could consider Konsa, who's back from his red card suspension, or even Matty Cash, but be aware that he is linked with a move to Forest, which will obviously impact his minutes if the deal does go through. Second in the table are Newcastle with Leeds, Wolves and Forest in 3 of the next 5. They've conceded the least XG in the opening 2 games, even after conceding 3 goals to Liverpool. Obviously, Villa got a red card in the first match, but they didn't look like conceding until then anyways. And then last season, Newcastle were 3rd for XG conceded, so they are a good defence, and they've got a great fixture run here. I think Burn and Livramento are the best picks from them. Burn picked up DEFCON in both games so far and is a threat from set pieces. Only thing is that he could have competition from Botman once he's back, in which case Livramento is probably the safest pick. He doesn't get DEFCON like Burn, but he's got decent attacking potential and he's got guaranteed minutes. Third in the table are Forest. They haven't kept a clean sheet yet, but the next few fixtures are amazing. West Ham at home, Burnley away, Sunderland at home in 3 of the next 4. If you're considering selling your Forest defenders after the disappointing start, I'd advise you to hold on for this fixture run because it really doesn't get better than that in terms of short-term fixtures. Fifth in the table are Liverpool with Burnley and Everton in game weeks 4 and 5. They've got Arsenal this week, so not the best time to buy, but from game week 4 onwards, I think we should be looking to get Liverpool defenders in if you don't have one already. And Van Dijk is the obvious pick with how secure his minutes are, and also the fact that he's got DEFCON points in both games so far and has racked up more defensive contributions than any player in the league so far. Sixth in the table are Palace with Villa, Sunderland, West Ham and Everton in 4 of the next 5. They've looked solid defensively. Munoz is my favourite pick from them with how attacking he is. Then Lacroix, who has picked up DEFCON in both games so far. And if you can't afford either of them, then Richards is a really solid option. He just missed out on DEFCON in both games, so he's a solid pick. Spurs are 8th in the table with Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Wolves and Leeds. Some nice fixtures in there and they've looked great defensively with no goals conceded yet. Thomas Frank has already had an impact from that perspective. In terms of who to go for, Porro has been very attacking and I believe his returns will come. Romero offers some DEFCON potential and Mickey van de Ven is only 4.5 mil playing in what looks to be a very good defence, so he's great value too. Some teams are lower down in the table that I think are worth a mention, Everton being one of them. They have Wolves, Villa and West Ham in 3 of the next 4, and Tarkowski has hit DEFCON in both of their opening fixtures, but they've also conceded the most XG in the league after playing Leeds and Brighton, so clean sheets may not be so easy to come by if that's any indication. And finally on Chelsea, they play Fulham, Brentford, Man United and Brighton in the next 4. They look to be very solid defensively ranked second for expected goals conceded so far. Cucurella, he's a great pick from them, and also Chalobah looks to be nailed on to start too. I've run a model that calculates which teams rotate the best based off the defensive fixture difficulty, and Forest and Newcastle is a really nice rotation. You get Newcastle against Leeds away and Forest against West Ham at home. Then in Game Week 4 you get Newcastle against Wolves at home. Game Week 5 is Forest against Burnley away, then Sunderland at home in Game Week 6. Then Game Week 7, Newcastle against Forest at home. So a really nice rotation there. On to attacks to target. Here we can see the teams with the best fixtures from an attacking perspective over the next 5 game weeks. Man United in first with Burnley at home, followed by City and Chelsea, which is tough. Then Brentford away and Sunderland at home in Game Week 6 and 7. My only concern with United is that they haven't scored a goal yet. However, in the Fantasy Football Scout stream that I do every Wednesday with FPL Harry and Tom, check it out if you haven't already, someone in the chat pointed out that Man United are tied first for shots taken, third for shots on target, and sixth for XG. So they have been unlucky so far, and you'd expect with the quality that they have up front that they will start scoring soon. But the options worth considering, Bruno, Cunha and Mbeumo, are all quite expensive, especially when you compare them to the other midfield options. But the fixtures are there, and if you get one of Bruno, Cunha or Mbeumo in this week, then that's also your captain sorted too, so definitely still worth a punt on them. Forest second in the table with West Ham at home, Burnley away and Sunderland at home in 3 of the next 4. And Chris Wood looks very tempting for a lot of managers. I myself own Watkins and Mateta, who neither have scored yet, so Chris Wood is on my radar for sure. And Gibbs White is also worth considering, as well as Anderson in that Forest side. Villa third in the table with Palace at home, Everton away, Sunderland away, Fulham at home and Burnley at home over the next 5. They've been so poor going forward, but as someone with double Villa attack in Rodgers and Watkins, I look at those fixtures and I just think, how could I possibly sell a player with that fixture on? And Harry made a great point on the stream that Emery started Kamara, Onana, Tielemans and McGinn in both games so far. They're all defensive minded players, so with Kamara out injured, you'd expect Malen to come into that attack and offer a bit more for them going forward, or at least you'd hope to think so. So my stance of Villa attackers is to hold but don't buy until they start scoring. Fulham fourth in the table, they've got Leeds and Brentford both at home in game weeks 4 and 5, but it's hard to pick who's going to get the points from them. I think it's an easy wait, one more game week, see how they line up and then reassess going into game week 4. Bournemouth fifth in the table with Spurs, Brighton, Newcastle and Leeds in the next 4 games. Semenyo is a great pick, as I mentioned in the Palmer and Saka replacement section, and Evan Nilsson is also worth a shout. He's not got any FPL returns yet, but with Kluivert back in the squad, you'd expect him to get a few more chances now. Palace sixth in the table with Villa, Sunderland and West Ham in the next 3 fixtures. Sarr is high on my radar for a Palmer replacement. I know Eze has gone, which obviously weakens their attack, but Sarr still looks great value at his price. Looking at the best attack and rotations, Palace and Man United come out on top. You get United against Burnley at home, Palace against Sunderland at home, then West Ham away, then United against Brentford away and Sunderland at home. So a really nice rotation there if you are happy to bench a United asset in game weeks 4 and 5. On to the stats review, where we analyse the best performing players statistically and compare that to their upcoming fixtures. Players in red are the most expensive and in green are the cheapest. And the size of their data point also shows how many minutes they've played, which is why Martinez is so low here, but he is in the top right, which shows they've not only got great upcoming fixtures, but they've also been pretty strong defensively, only conceding 1 goal so far. Pope is also up there in the top right. Newcastle, a great defence, great fixtures. He's a solid pick on wildcard. And then Sells up there near the top with good fixtures too, but Forest have not been as solid defensively this season as a lot of FPL managers were hoping. Let's take a look at the defenders to see who's standing out so far. Here we've multiplied the fixture difficulty rating on the left by the team's defensive strength rating to give us an idea of how likely clean sheets are over the next 5 game weeks. Right now, we only have 2 game weeks worth of data, which isn't really anything to go off, but still interesting to see any trends starting to emerge. Van Dijk and Cucurella, still the only 2 6 million defenders to make it onto the plot. For the 5.5 million defenders, Murillo, Munoz, Tarkowski, Porro, Timber, Calafiori, they all make it on. Calafiori by far and above the most attacking defender based off his expected data so far. Timber the second highest, but there is quite a gap there. And then in the top left, you can see all the teams with the best chances of clean sheets over the next 5. Liverpool, Newcastle, Villa, Forest and Palace all look positive here. On to midfielders, we're looking at fixture difficulty from an attacking perspective over the next 5 game weeks compared to their expected goal involvement. Salah in bright red, right on the average line for expected goal involvement. Now that we've seen where he is, let's remove him from the plot and we can see the other premium mids showing up here. Saka down the bottom with low XGI and tough fixtures. He's obviously injured, but then Bruno in the top right with great expected data and amazing upcoming fixtures, and Cunha and Mbumo not too far behind him. Then below them are the Bournemouth players with Semenyo way out on the right and Brooks behind him. Then Barnes showing the best expected data of the Newcastle mids. On to forwards, we can see Haaland out on the far right. He didn't return against Spurs, but he still racked up 0.77 expected goal involvement, which keeps him out on the far right of the plot. If he continues like this, then I think he could be in a lot of our teams very soon. But let's remove him from the plot to get a better look at the other forwards. Starting from the top, Sesko has the best fixtures, but hasn't looked dangerous so far. Wood also great fixtures and good expected data. Then Watkins, who's been really disappointing. He has good upcoming fixtures and has already actually had good fixtures too, but he hasn't returned yet. Below him, it's Muniz, Mateta, Evan Nielsen and Strand Larsen. And out on the right, we can see the forwards racking up the best expected goal involvement so far. Welbeck out in front after his 2 big chances against Everton. Ekitike and Gyökeres behind him. Both have settled into the Prem fairly quickly, which is good to see. Then Thiago, Richarlison, João Pedro and Nemecha, all above the average line for expected goal involvement so far. On to captaincy, and in the number 1 spot I have Erling Haaland. He looked very dangerous in the first 2 games, scored 2 against Wolves and it could have been 4. Didn't return against Spurs, but could have had a goal and an assist. He's got the highest expected goal involvement in the league by far, 2.76 expected goal involvement, which is over 1 XGI more than Semenyo in second place with 1.68. So I fancy Haaland's chances against Brighton's high line this game week. In second, I have Bruno, and if he didn't miss that penalty, he would have picked up 9 points even without bonus, and guaranteed he would have been the most transferred in player this game week, but he missed the pen and here we are. I still think he's a great captaincy shout against Burnley at home. And finally, in third, I have Chris Wood. He didn't have the most lively game against Palace, but they're a good defence. On the other hand, West Ham are not. 8 goals conceded in 2 games is a horrendous start to the season for them, and I think they're definitely a side we should be targeting for captaincy, so Chris Wood gets the nod here. My game week 2 was probably my worst game week I've ever had in FPL, 41 points all out and a game week rank of 8.2 million, down to 5.1 million overall. Aït-Nouri injured in the 23rd minute, Palmer captain injured in the warm-up, which I was initially obviously upset about. Then I got very excited about the prospect of vice-captain Watkins taking the armband against Brentford, which I was very tempted to do anyways. Then subsequently upset again after Watkins blank and the prospect of a huge Salah haul ruining my rank, and Salah's last minute assist was the cherry on top of just a horrendous game week for me. But on the upside, Gakpo 2 assists, Munoz got an assist, Esteve got a clean sheet. Those were my only 3 players to return this game week, so not ideal, and obviously not owning João Pedro when everyone else does was a huge rank loss. So let's see how we're going to fix this in game week 3. There's quite a lot that I don't like about this team. The Aït-Nouri injury, Palmer injury, double Villa attack, Mateta hasn't been firing, Harry Wilson didn't even start in game week 2. But that's what my transfers are there for, and my moves this week will be dictated by the press conference updates on Aït-Nouri and Palmer. If they're both fit, I'm going to roll. If Aït-Nouri is injured, I'm going to go for one of Porro, Van Dijk or Dan Burn. I like Porro for the next 5 game weeks, so he's probably top of my chart. But I also like Van Dijk and plan to get him in after he plays Arsenal this game week and for when he plays Burnley and Everton back to back. Another option is Dan Burn, who plays Leeds and Wolves in the next 2, which looks really good for clean sheets. Then if Palmer is injured, I'm going to go for one of Semenyo, Sarr, Kudus or Elanga. Right now, I'd probably lean in the favour of Semenyo, but Sarr is very close behind. And a third option of transfers in the case that Aït-Nouri is fit but Palmer isn't. Then I could do, let's say, Palmer to Semenyo and then upgrade Mark Giu to Wood or João Pedro, who I would then captain. So there's a huge upside to that transfer in that I get a captaincy pick out of it too, but nothing is set in stone here. I'm going to wait until the deadline stream to make my moves. So if you want to see what I go for, join my deadline stream 1 hour before the deadline. That's 10 AM UK time this Saturday. Hopefully I will see you guys there. And if you made it this far in the video, then thank you for watching. One thing you can do to help is to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're aiming for 10,000 subscribers by the end of the season, so join the community if you haven't already. Until next time guys, have a good one.